Unity Radiant Light. Welcome to Unity Radiant Light. This is Sunday, March 13th, and we are continuing the Nag Hammadi series. And with that, we'll be talking about the secret book of James today. And now Candidas Rose will bless us with special music.
Good morning, all. Welcome, welcome. Today is all about light. I am light, I am 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 light. I am not the things my family did. I am not the voices in my head. I am not the pieces of the brokenness inside. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am light, I am light. I am light, I am light. I'm not the mistakes that I have made, or any of the things that cause me pain. I am not the pieces of the dream I left inside. I am light. I am light. I am light. I am I am not the color of my eyes. I am not the skin on the outside. I am not my age. I am not my race. My soul inside is all light. All night, all night, all night. I am light, I am light. I am light, I am light. Yeah. I am divinity defined. I am the God on the inside. I am the star, a piece of it all. I am light. I am light.
Thank you, Candidas. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And anybody that's new to Unity Radiant Light, we do say the Lord's Prayer here, but we say a different version. And as we are going through the Gnostic scriptures, we'll start to see more reasons why, too. We know that the prayer that most of us grew up with was translated 8 or 9 times, so it looks very different from the one that we say here. The one that we say here, the version is translated 1 time from Jesus' ancient Aramaic language. So I invite you to say it with me, keeping your mics muted. Together, O thou, from whom the breath of life comes, who fills all realms of sound, light, and vibration, may your light be experienced in my utmost holiest. Your heavenly domain approaches. Let your will come true in the universe, just as on earth. Give us wisdom for our daily need. Detach the karma that binds us, like we let go of the guilt of others. Let us not be lost in superficial things, but let us be freed from that which keeps us from our true purpose. From you comes the all-working will, the lively strength to act, the song that beautifies all and renews itself from age to age. Sealed in trust, faith, and truth, I confirm with my entire being. And as I read that this morning, it even it brings to mind more of what we're doing with the Gnostic scriptures and the Nag Hammadi library, because what we're going to find throughout the Gnostic scriptures is the same thing. It's not based on judgmental things as much as it's saying don't be lost in superficial things. And that is the theme for this. It's not about judging people or a lot of the things, ideas that many of us may have grown up with, and it'll seem foreign to us. And today, in the Nag Hammadi library, which we started last week, there's 13 codexes. And today we're on the second codex. It's the Secret Book of James, which is amazing. And and as we go through each of these books, we'll find different teachings of Jesus that was not put in the Bible. In the 3rd century, there was the Nicenes met and found out and decided which Gospels, which writings would be put into the Bible, and the ones that we're talking about through Lent and beyond are the ones that were not put in the Bible, which I find it's kind of like the Bible, which I love and read and read the scriptures, but to me it seems like we're getting the beginning and the end, a story about Jesus, where the Gnostic scriptures really are in the middle, and they are really the teachings of Jesus. I know he taught through parables and other ideas, but what happened? But when the decision was made that these wouldn't be put in the Bible, I think that we lost some of the translations, some of the reasons why Jesus, things that Jesus came for. And so I love us taking a look at this. And last week we started with the first codex, which was the Gnostic scriptures. This was the prayer of Paul, and this was a prayer that it gave us the feeling and the ideas behind this. But something happened when we get to the Secret Book of James. But before we go there, let's just review a little bit about what the Nag Hammadi scriptures are. This may be the first time you're hearing of them, and what they are is, and I'm going to also talk each week. We're going to take a little trip into the past too, to really discuss who wrote them, what their belief systems were, where it came from. Because even when reading the Bible, I always looked at what was happening during the time, who was in power, what the belief systems were, how they impacted that. Because I think it's really hard to read and understand any kind of scripture from any faith if we don't understand what was happening at the time and what the belief systems were of the people. So we're going to take a little trip down into the past and kind of pull back some layers and talk about why the people why their belief systems were the way they were and where they came from. So we know that in these codexes were written and that they were found in 1945, and then the Dead Sea Scrolls were found in 1946. And when we go back and start asking the questions, who wrote these? Where were they from? We really have to we really have to think about what was happening before the time of Jesus. So the Nag Hammadi caves were in Egypt, and in 1945, they were digging in Egypt, and they found all of these scrolls, and they quickly realized that they had something really important from the past, and over the last century into this century, they've been translated, and they found that these were the teachings, and some of the secret teachings, like today is a secret teaching of Jesus, that were hidden because they didn't want them to be lost forever. And the same thing happened with the Dead Sea Scrolls, which was found in the Qumran caves. And we're going to talk about Qumran in a second and how important that is. Also talked about some of the teachings, but also referred to these scriptures that they didn't want to have lost forever. So what was happening in the time that these were written? Well, they're believed to have been written by the Essenes. And the Essenes, the big question is, the Essenes believed in gnosis, the knowledge of God. This is basically what this is. So this is this desire to not just read a story about the historical Jesus and his teachings and reference from that, but to really understand God, to really understand what those teachings, what the teachings are. And the thing that I love about this, there's so many different rules around many religions, and I'm never going to criticize any other religions because I do believe all paths lead to God. But the thing that I love about this one is that anyone can be on this path. There's no judgment. It's not about that. It's about living our life in a certain way and to seek this knowledge of God. And today we're really going to get into some of those teachings in the secret book of James, because it really it was a long chapter in a long scripture, and really goes into quite a bit of depth, because in some of these codexes we'll find, like in the Gospel of Mary, which we believe to be Mary Magdalene, there are only 5 pages remained from it because the others disintegrated. So when we're reading the Bible, the Gnostic scriptures, whatever we're reading, and we understand what these scenes were trying to relay to us through these writings, is their belief system. And their belief systems has been thought to come from the Magi. Does everybody want to remember the Magi, the 3 wise men that are in the story about Jesus' birth, who came over from India? Also there were teachings in Iran and other countries, and these teachings were very mystical. And what happened, what these teachings were based on, is that there's so much more to us than we see. And we think about what Jesus said about that even in all the scriptures, is that that's true. And they believe a creation story that's a little bit different from the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. They believe what happened at that time is that we got caught in material beliefs. We got kind of caught in all material beliefs. And until then, we had a light. We were just pure light. And we had a light body. And what happened, instead of getting clothes that we know in the traditional scripture says we got clothes, the Essenes and all the people that they followed believed that we received skin that covered our light. And that our light was not diminished, because it can never be diminished at the time, but we forgot who we were because we caught up into the things that were happening here. And that the whole journey in the scriptures and everything else is for us to get to remember, to awaken to the knowledge of who we are, and go back to that, to ascend back into the light. And we have a lot today, people talk a lot about ascension, which means we want to go up into a higher vibration. We tie it a lot of times to dimensions, where we were born into the 3rd dimension, going into the 4th dimension, which is a higher elevation of our beliefs in the 3rd dimension. And the 5th dimension is believed, and this is what the scientists have termed it, is the 1st dimension of light. So that's a place where we have more knowledge, we are lighter. So if you look at the scientists, what they say about it is that we're going from a carbon-based body that we're born into. When we can change those belief systems, we become the light. We become a crystal. That's why they call it the crystalline body. But we don't have to go into all of that for the teachings of secret teachings of James. But I wanted to reference that because what they were talking about, why they were talking about the people, the children of light, the rainbow children they talk about coming today, was because they also believed that there were people of darkness that were here. And they were here to bring the planet down into the material realm. And that basically we were at war with the darkness. And they believed that if we could purify ourselves, and if we could, with these teachings, that we could become the light and the darkness would leave our planet. So we hear a lot about that today. We see it all the time in movies, right? The dark and the light. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. Lots of darkness there, but they're also talking about the light. Avatar. I mean, almost anything we look at, we see that there's these two different belief systems. These scenes were believed to have lived to show. They have shown up about 200 to 300 years before Jesus' time. But in really looking at this and studying this, they've been traced back to Moses' time. And what did Moses talk to? The burning bush, the light, right? There's a lot of similarities. So as we go through these teachings, we're going to find these similarities are all there. We're going to find that across all spheres, or even Buddha teachings, everything else, that these teachings of Jesus all tie in. We're not all that different from each other. We believe in the oneness, and when we really look at the base of it, it's about kindness. It's about love. And we're going to talk about and Jesus even laid out what were the most important things in the secret book of James. And we will talk about that. So these scenes were also known as the Nazarenes. They were known as the Watchers because they were watching for the high celestial beings, the archangels and angels that were going to be here to help us through. Remember, Gabriel is very visible in the Bible that we know and he was seen to be an angel. Now, I'm not going to go any further than that because there's different beliefs, and some people say he was from the Pleiades, another planetary system, and other things. And I think when we get into all this and we look at the teachings, it doesn't really matter because what we want to look at is the true essence of the teachings. So these belief systems from Iran, the Middle East, all around, come these teachings. What happened around Jesus' times? Well, they believed that the dark ones, the Essenes believed the dark ones at that time were the Romans, and that they were there to really take these teachings out of society. Why would they want that? If you're looking at the politics of the time, and this is probably, I'll talk about politics in the past, not today, but at that time, why would they want that? Because these teachings talked about an untold power that's within each one of us. They didn't talk about the rules we had to follow so much. They didn't talk about those things. They didn't judge people for their beliefs or who they are. They talked about this unconditional love for who we are. And that's so powerful that they didn't want that to go on. So in 68 AD, that was after Jesus had already been resurrected and ascended into heaven. As the teachings we'll talk about what he says that is in a little while. They decided to ethnic cleanse these scenes. They came in and most people were killed, and they thought that everything would be lost at that point. But what happened was, is that they hid these teachings, but we find them. They never did die at the time. We know we can link them back to the mystery schools that some people study in. They're there. They've been there all along. And we can see them in other teachings that come. We study the Law of One. We study different kind of mystery schools. And we know that the teachings from Unity are a little bit different to our belief system because they also left that land. And we know that these teachings traveled into France. The people of France talk about Mary Magdalene traveling there and the teacher that she was. And they came down through different groups. We find them actually hidden in stories like King Arthur and Camelot. And I really want to do a series on King Arthur and Camelot because the stories are all there. As we saw at Halloween a few years ago, we looked at the tarot cards where people think that they're there for divination only. But we laid them out and we looked at them and saw what's really there is the hidden story. You see the popes, you see when there was problems with the popes, there was the different belief systems, how people were persecuted. It's all laid out in these hidden teachings. We know that the Cathars in France was a belief system that was based on all of these teachings is where unity comes from, where there's a direct line from them down to us. And people call it New Thought. They call it these teachings because it teaches, our Bible is still our main textbook, but we look at things metaphysically and we know that these teachings are out here. And that's why I wanted to spend some time on the Gnostic scriptures. I didn't want to do a 4-week series and just brush over the meanings of these. So the scenes where they lived in Mount Carmel, and they were teaching. They believed that we were trying to, as we learned and took in these things and purified our body. They were vegetarian. They had a lot of beliefs about structures of meditation and prayer. And it was all to open ourselves up to this light body. And they were around in Jesus' time. And Mary, some people thought that Mary, the mother of Jesus, may have come from the Essene line. But they talk about this blueprint. They always taught about this blueprint of ascension into higher levels of light. And they have a lot of mystery around them. But when we go through this, we're the Gnostic scriptures, we're going to see that there really is very little mystery. So when we look at this second codex that it's called, the Secret Books of James, we'll find out this is the time after Jesus had already resurrected. This didn't happen while he was still in human form. This was after the resurrection, and he met with the apostles. And what he did when he met with them during with the Secret Book of James is he asked all of the apostles except for Peter and James to leave. He only wanted to teach them. And the reason is because he knew they had more of an understanding of everything that he had taught. And he was very hesitant to teach the other disciples until they were ready. And he knew that with Peter and James having this information, that they would share it and they'd be taught. The other thing that's so interesting that makes the Secret Book of James so different is that most of the codexes were written in Greek. That was the language of the time that people wrote in. This Secret Book of James was written in Hebrew, which really tells us a lot. And it's more of a blueprint than it is of stories, than it is about parables. Jesus really kind of said, he said in there directly, he said, I came and I taught parables and nobody understood them. And he said, and now we need to step up. And he explained some things. And as I go through these certain points, you're going to recognize some of you. You're going to say, wow, that's what we talk about in Unity. The classes that Joe teaches on prayer and the metaphysics, it's all in there. Now, he didn't use the same language that we used. And also, we have to remember, too, that these scriptures were written through the filter of somebody else. So whatever the terminology of the time is, that was used. So as we look through this, we'll look at this, and I'll also relate it back to the Unity teachings that we follow. And he said that they asked Jesus the first thing they asked Jesus is if he had left them, and he said no, but he would return to the place he came from. And he asked them if they wanted to go at the time. And then he kind of stopped and he said, you have a job here. And he was going to deliver the teachings, but that they could come and that everybody could come to this place. And he said the way we would do it, and it's not there was no list of rules that most of us know through the teachings, say you have to do this and this and this. He said you have to be filled with spirit. You think about that. And as we do Joe opens the church service by having us take a deep breath in, because it always relates back to the breath. And we've looked at a lot of the indigenous teachings too, and it always goes back to that breath of life, right? That breath, even in Hawaiian teachings, aloha, ha means breath. In all of the indigenous teachings we'll find things that go back to the breath. So he's talking about this breath, but what he means with this breath is filling ourselves with the Spirit. And then he spoke to them about, that they weren't going to be treated well or understood at first. And he was talking to Peter and James at the time. He knew what was coming with these teachings, but he wanted to give them the instructions they would need to complete what they needed to do. So the rest of this really is a book of instructions. He said if we had beliefs in lack, that we could not be saved. And this is very different from most of us grew up when. Most of us learned prayer by asking for things and a lot of times begging. And anybody who's and we're going to have prayer after this, knows that when we pray, we see it right. And what does that mean? We see a person, so when a person comes to us for healing, we don't see them with their illness. We see them as whole and complete because we recognize that they are a child of God and they are this light body that's filled, and we know that that can happen. He said that also that if we see lack, that's what we're going to experience. And he was talking about in the world where we saw lack and we embraced it, well, then we would see it. He was letting them know how powerful they were. But if we want to see prosperity, what do we have to do? We have to breathe it in with the Spirit. We have to see it. We have to recognize that as a child of God, as Myrtle said, she did not inherit illness, but as a child of God, we did not inherit lack either. And I know when I was in seminary and I was taking prosperity and I was having some hard times, I'd gone through a divorce, and at the time and I know I say this often, but my professor said to me, you will see lack in your life until you believe that prosperity is yours, until you recognize that lack is not your inheritance. And I remember at the time I was frustrated. I'm like, what does that mean? But then I had to really fill myself with the Spirit and see myself. As we do with visualization, we talk about the law of attraction. We see it, and we don't just see it. What do we have to do? We have to feel it. So he said that we had to lose those visions and those feelings and really the prayers for lack. He said we couldn't be saved. Now, he wasn't talking about heaven or hell, as we see in the Christian scriptures, the New Testament. He was talking about heaven as a state of consciousness. Heaven is something that we can create here. And hell can also be a state of consciousness, a place where we see lack, where we see things that are really tough. And we are powerful enough beings that if we don't fill ourselves with the Spirit, these ideas and that visualization, then we're going to experience wherever our consciousness is. Very, very close to these Unity teachings, because I can see where Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, our co-founders of Unity, first encountered these ideas and really, and they are prevalent throughout our belief system. He also said that the big difference, and we see it in the book of James, what was just amazing, glaring even, is that there's no judgment. He's saying, yes, you don't want to have lack. You're going to see what you get. But he doesn't say you have to pray a certain way. He doesn't say you have to do anything. He doesn't have to live a certain lifestyle, because he saw that as a lot of that. In the end, he talks a lot about hypocrisy. Us judging other people, talks about the hypocrisy of what was happening in the time. That there were, remember in the scriptures, in the Bible, he talks about that. He overturns the tax collectors' tables in the temple, because he wants us to get away from this sense consciousness, this consciousness where we live based on these beliefs that, we're being judged. And I was raised, and I'm not like I said, I will not criticize anybody, but I was raised in a belief system where I had to ask for forgiveness. When I went to church every week, I made the statement, I was not worthy. And what we're seeing in the secret book of James is the opposite of that. He's saying you have to understand who you are. You have to change those teachings, that understanding. We have to approach healing, he said, filled with images of healing. That's what we do in our healing service after this service. So prayer becomes a statement of what we believe in. In Unity, we do affirmations. We affirm what we know. Myrtle Fillmore, we know, as we said before, she said, as a child of God, I did not inherit illness. And at 40, she was told she had 2 to 3 months left to live because she had tuberculosis her whole life. And with that belief system, it took her 2 years to change her body. And she lived 46 more years until she was 86 years old, and she was healthy. He states in the scriptures, he said, one who lacks is not filled with the same way with one who is, that doesn't live from lack. So he's saying, if you're coming from lack, if you're coming from fear, that you're not going to be filled the same way, we have to change our mind. That is so profound, because it means that the answer to everything is inside of us, right? He gives specific directions on how to manifest what you want. And he said that it's filling ourselves with spirit and not reason. He said if we come from reason, we will never find what we want. And what he's believed to have meant is this: everything that we do in the beginning of service every week. We move from our head, reason, to our heart. We know we call it the longest journey in the world, the 18 inches, to move into our heart. We move into our heart mind. We move from a place of reason. And there's still reason in the heart mind, but we move to a place of feeling. And Jesus is very specific about that we have to let go of the reason. And he said that, they went on and asked him, how do we stop what we're doing right now? And he said, we have to stop worshiping the flesh and material things, not get caught in it. He said, otherwise we would be in hell, which we know hell is a state of consciousness. And we have to create this consciousness from the heart. We know he talks about Satan in there, and we know that Satan, the meaning of that, if we go to the revealing word, Charles Fillmore talks about it's our fixation on indulgence and negativity, the adversary. So one of the things he said is that we became locked up and crucified by our beliefs rather than by the world. He said we were locked up and crucified by our beliefs instead of by the world. And right there he's talking about sin, which we know our definition of sin is error thoughts, not seeing it right. So he never said, if you do this, you're going to go to hell, or this is all going to happen. What he says in the secret book of James is that we're locked up because of our own belief system. And they asked him not to talk about the cross when he mentioned it. And he said, well, if we don't, then that means we believe only in the flesh, the illusion of the world. That through the cross, each one of us is saved, not by being crucified the same way Jesus was, but by going through the cross and releasing this hell that we may be locked up in. Every person, we're different, but if we have this belief system, then we're going to have to travel the cross. We will be crucified by it, or we can let it go, and we can be filled with the Spirit. And he said, no one that believes in death will be saved, because those who believe in it will experience it. And he talked about death a little bit too. He talked about us being eternal. And he said, your time here is like a day. That's it. He said, you think it's the only time in the world and that you're here. It's not. It's a small blip. But that we can learn from it, that we can expand our consciousness. And he said, where they felt kind of down at the end, he said, don't. This is the way. We have to be joyful for it. He gave instructions on how to talk to the rulers and teach people. And he said that you must understand the light. The Father doesn't need me, but I need the Father. So I came down to you. What does that mean? The Father doesn't need me, but I need the Father. It talks about, again, that God is not the old guy in the sky. We know, and we looked at, when we look at the Lord's Prayer that we say, we know that Jesus called God Abba, which means daddy, even more than father. So what he was saying was, he was not that he was some judgmental guy out here, but that he's very close to us. We have an intimate relationship with that. And that, and that was the first time we see that in the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures. We don't see a lot of that. We see a God that was judgmental, that he was outside of ourselves looking in. We know with that, even in the scriptures in the Bible, in the Christian scriptures, Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is where? Within. He taught that everything that we need was inside of ourselves. And like when we go back to the other teachings we see in the mystery schools, we see in Buddhism, we see in all of the other faith systems, and a lot of times in the mystery teachings of these faith systems, that this kingdom of heaven is within. It's inside us, that we have a light. And that light, when we can unlock it, not by following, living our lives, yes, you do live your lives a certain way when you do this, but not by judgmental things. But when we change our mind and we understand what those mean, it changes everything. It changes how we live our life. But also we find eternal life at that point, because we understand not that we've earned it, but that we always had it. We've always had this power within us. And this is the time. And when he talked about the children of light coming, which he did in the secret book of James, he was talking about the earth changing and that light shining brighter. And that would be when we drop the judgment about one another. We would stop fighting with each other. So he said, first I spoke to you in parables and you didn't understand. And now I speak to you, still not grasping it. Be eager to be saved without being in the body, and do greater things than I did. He said, stay away from hypocrisy, because it is the path away from God. And do not let the kingdom of heaven wither away. Not that we would lose it because of what we were doing so much, as we would lose it because of our belief system. We wouldn't see it. He said, is it not possible for you to produce a new world now and for you to find it? He wanted us to find that power within us. And he left 4 things that we were really to focus on. He said we focus on faith, which in the 12 powers that we have in unity, the first faith and the foundational faith is power is faith. It's the foundation of everything we believe in. He said the second thing is to love, to hold love and be love, and our works. So as our 5th unity principle says, it's not enough to know these things. We have to live by them. We have to take action. And life, we have to understand life, not that as the human being that comes here and we're either good or bad and go to hell at the end of life, but to understand that we are eternal beings with no beginning and no end. And yes, we come here and have this experience, but we are life itself. And whether we have that belief or not, nothing changes that. So Jesus, what I'm finding in these Gnostic scriptures and have found over the years, I love them, is that the way through the kingdom, to the kingdom, is through this knowledge, not through what is taught in the world. That's what he said. So for us to find this kingdom, we have to understand who and what we are. We are light beings, and that's why our theme for today is light. Within us is the light that shines, and we can believe that it's dim, but it never can be. We have to stop judging other people and fighting with other people because they have that same light in them. We have to have respect for that. There's a lot of belief systems that cut people out for either their beliefs or lifestyles or whatever it is. That's not the way to this kingdom, because every person on this planet is love and is love beyond measure. Every person, everything. God is in every cell, every body, everything on the planet, in the universe. That's what this is. We live in this state of oneness, and we don't realize it. We think we're separate. To start to understand these things, who we are, what we are, is the path to this. I found this secret book of James to be so uplifting. Also, because first of all, I love the fact that I'm seeing the unity teachings in it. And the one thing Jesus did talk about, he said, our spirit will never change. He said the soul is not saved apart from the spirit, and the spirit will never change. But the soul can be impacted by some of the things and belief systems that we do. He's talking about karma. He says, I say to this to you, and that you may know yourselves. Remember, because I was with you and you did not know me. And his last words were, do not let the kingdom of heaven become a desert within you. Do not let the kingdom of heaven become a desert within you. So what he was essentially saying was, don't lose this consciousness of who you are. Raise up in consciousness. Don't be caught by the judgments and the rules and all of that here. But let it feed you. Let it nourish you. Drink from the waters of it. That is what Jesus was saying. So I really love the fact that we're talking about the Gnostic scriptures. I love the fact that Jesus had these teachings that we can really see what he was teaching more clearly from them. He said, he talked throughout these Gnostic scriptures. He said the one way to do this is we have to open our hearts to receive heaven. Everything we do is heart opening. So they said at the end of the chapter that they ascended briefly with Jesus, but they weren't allowed to see anything or hear anything. James and Peter. So they couldn't really tell them what they saw. And he said that Jesus, when he ascended knowing that we would join him. And when we really think about our spirit, the spirit never leaves that. Our higher self is our spirit. And is always in that elevated place. So our one job here, when we think about this, our one thing to do is to expand our thoughts, to expand our beliefs, to understand when you look in the mirror, you are looking at something so magnificent that you, every person, has this light within you. So God doesn't make junk. We know that. God is a part of us in every cell of our body. And as Charles and Myrtle Fillmore taught, that we are here as sparks of God, as children of God, but we're here to express God. When we're out in the world and we understand that we have this within us. And we always say, with the community project and being out to work with the homeless or doing the different things that we're doing, we're there to express God, to be that expression, not to be there to be judgmental, not to be there to tell people there's, what they have to do, but we're here to understand that each person is this expression of God on this planet. And yes, there's things that we have to stand up for. We're not saying we have to be a spiritual doormat, but when we go to love, everything changes. So I'm so glad to be on this journey with you. So grateful. And I wanted to let you know, too, where I'm getting a lot of these teachings, because I know I'm going to get texts and emails and everything else after this. So the one thing that I use is called the Gnostic Bible. And I have it in book format, plus I have the Kindle, because then I can mark it up and look at it. But you don't have to get this. You can also go on YouTube. There's so much information about this. Gaia.com, there's the Ascension series. They talk about the Gnostic scriptures, these scenes. And also each week, as we go through this, we're going to be exploring the background on each of these codexes. We're going to be looking at these belief systems, and we're going to be and we'll be covering that too. So thank you. I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. I love you all. Let's take a few minutes now to meditate and to celebrate this. With our mics still muted, let's say our meditation affirmation. I am open and receptive to the spirit of truth, healing what needs to be healed and revealing what needs to be revealed. And as we move into the meditation, you can close your eyes if that's what you're comfortable with. You can just relax. You can either sit or lie down. It does make it easier virtually because you can be wherever you want. And just be comfortable. And as we sit with this knowledge, this information inside of us, we're just going to take a deep breath in, and we know that breath of life, it is. We breathe in all the way down to our stomachs, and then we're going to release it back out. So we take another deep breath in, all the way down. And as we release, we're consciously, gently letting go of any of the false beliefs that we may have. And on the next deep breath in, we just say God is. And we release with I am. God is. I am. And we feel that energy from our head moving into our heart center and expanding out. You may feel tingling. As we recognize this one power and one presence that's inside of us. Feel it in every cell of our body. And as we think about this light that we're talking about, we feel our chakra system, chakras lining up, opening, spinning. The crown chakra opening up to the higher chakras, to the heavens that we know about. That energy coming and going. We feel in the base of our feet, that base chakra opening into the earth, to Gaia. exchanging energy there. As this energy exchange comes in and out and through us and as us, we feel that heart growing and expanding. And we know that as we open ourselves up, as Jesus was talking about, to this light, to this breath, he said, feel it. Open our bodies to it. We feel that light within us. Yes, it's flowing through us, but it is us. That long kept secret, right? We just feel it expanding beyond us. I just invite you to go into the silence for a few moments, allowing that light to fill you up in the silence. And that light is part of this oneness that's the world. So as we allow that light to rise and shine out to the world, to the places that need it most, Ukraine, Russia, Yemen, wherever the needs are, where there's unrest, fighting, we know that that light, Jesus said, you are the light of the world, is shining, and people are feeling it. Shining it into places where people are hungry, where there's flooding in Australia or anywhere. We just allow it to envelop the planet. And we know that there's others right now in this prayer field holding for this light, holding this light. In the secret book of James, Jesus talks about it being our consciousness being the change. So as we look at these things with renewed consciousness, we see it right. Knowing that each person, whether we agree with them or not, has this light within them. And we embrace the light, encourage it. And as we are in this meditation, we just open for prayers and healing for all people. You can either place a prayer in the chat room if you're here live, or send the prayers in. I also invite you can say a person's name out loud with conviction, hold it silent in your heart. But we are using this time to pray, to see it right. And as we hold this prayer, we see each person who we're praying for health. We see them with every cell in their body working as perfect and whole. For people that are living in lack, who have circumstances that may look dire at this point, we see them with prosperity in every area of their lives. We hope for that. We have this inner joy, and we see each person and every soul with the inner joy rising, this joy that leads to peace. And we understand more of what love means, that we come from the field of love. This place, this consciousness called heaven, is love. And from that, we know that through our teachings, especially the teachings of Jesus, our way shower, and to all the guides and masters who have come to this planet or are currently here teaching, that this is powerful. that we can change the way we live, thereby elevating the consciousness of the planet. And for this, we are so grateful, as we say, and so it is. Amen. Just invite you to keep your mics muted, and Candida Rose will be blessing us with special music.
My goodness, it was so beautiful. Thank you so much, Reverend. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's just continue to breathe, to continue to breathe in God is and I am as we listen to this song by Faith Rivera. Where I am, God is. Where I stand, God is standing strong. Where I breathe, God is breathing life in and out and through me. As me, where I sing, God is. Where I dance, joy lifts my feet. Where I live, beauty's flowing free, in and out and through me. As me, oh, where I die, God is the faith in me. Where I cry, God is the comfort there. And where I see, God is the answer, here and now, forever and ever and ever. Where I speak, truth is. Where I work, love is my career. Where I play, God is playing boldly, in and out and through me. As me. Oh, yeah, yes. Where I am, where I stand, where I play, where I work and breathe and move and be, where I sing, where I dance my dance, my dance, wherever I go, where I pray and take and give and live. God is, life is, truth is, God is.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Candida. Such a beautiful voice, beautiful music.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to take this time to thank everyone for their support, for the love offerings and tithes that we've received. We've been able to teach the classes and serve the community with them. As we prove, as we've gone through these last couple of years, that Unity Radiant Night is not about walls. It's about a group of souls who are out there making a difference in the community. And we thank you for that. If you would like to make a love offering to Unity Radiant Light, you can do so at unityradiantlight.org. The donate button, you can mail a check. I receive them through Venmo, everything. I mean, we just want you to know how grateful we are for that. And I know I said mute the mics earlier, but I invite you to unmute your mics now, because even though it will come in as a blessed mess, we're going to feel the vibration as we say our prosperity blessing, as we say together, divine love.
Divine love, flowing as me,
blesses and multiplies,
all that I have,
all that I give, and all that
I receive. Amen.
Amen. Yes. So our offertory prayer, we just hold for a moment and we just thank and we see, take a moment to thank, just have gratitude, because gratitude is the main thing that we need in prayer. We have gratitude in our hearts for all that we have and all that we receive, and how we're taken care of so effortlessly in so many different ways. We feel open and grateful hearts for that. And as we feel gratitude for the Gnostic scriptures, for the Bible, for all of those teachings that show us, give us this blueprint of life. We are so grateful for Jesus, our way shower, who brought these to us, all the other guides and masters. We say thank you. And so it is. And together, let's bless the people of the world. So to all the people of the world, we love you.
Love you.
Appreciate you.
We appreciate you. We bless you, and we behold the Christ in you.
And Candida, we're going to be muting our mics again, so we only hear Candida, but we're going to be taking us out with the song "This Little Light of Mine." Have some fun with it.
All right. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, yeah, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All in my house now. All in my house, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, all in my house, I'm gonna let it shine. Come on, let's put those hands together. Every my house, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. All around my neighborhood now. All around my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, all in my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. All in my neighborhood, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light, oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Yes, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Cherie, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I got excited about the song. As we go forward this week, I remember to be the light, to be that light. And as we say this prayer for protection together, we're recognizing that light. I am the light of God.
God.
I am the light of
love of God.
I am the
I am the
power of
power of God.
I am the
I
presence
am
of
the
God.
presence of God.
Where we
Wherever we are, God is in all is well.
well. And the people said,
Amen.
Amen.